Hi there and welcome. So good to have you with me for this mini class on iridology and hormones. I'm just going to ask you to do me a favor, and that is if you watch this on the replay, if you're catching this on the YouTube channel, would you do me a favor and like the video, drop a comment, share it, and of course, subscribe to my channel. It helps to make the videos more visible to more people, and that is very appreciated. I would love it if you'd all find the chat box and say hello. Let's make sure that you know how to use that chat box. Just give me a quick hello in the chat so that I know that you are here. And we've got it. Yes. So good. So good. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. All right. Oh, we've got from London, Sarah. Oh, you're up late. That's like 1 a.m. your time, isn't it? Wow. Wow. I am very impressed with that. So good to see so many familiar names and new names, new people with us tonight too. Thank you. When we do an iris assessment, we always start off with identifying the constitution, and then we need to know the constitutional subtype, and then we need to know the structural subtype. Those are the first 3 steps in an iris assessment. Those 3 steps give us a lot of information about our client's chemistry and about their genetic tendencies. That is the platform on which we build the assessment. That is the lens through which we are going to pass their symptoms and their lifestyle through in order to help them and help us create a protocol for them. Without this base of and other identifying markers, of course, and individual pigments, they just wouldn't be of value, right? We can have all the markers we want, we have all the pigments we want, but if we don't have that foundation of constitution, subtype, and structural subtype, the pigments and the other markers don't have anything to correlate with. They're just kind of ideas that are floating around out there. And we want to be solid. So the base constitution and the various subtypes, again, give us that understanding of the client's inherent chemistry, genetically what they are capable of. And that gives us insight into information about hormones. Now, not necessarily specific hormones. Like we can't look at an eye and say, oh, your estrogen is too high, your testosterone is too low. But we can get that general feel for what the hormones are likely to do. And when we put that with symptoms, it helps us to get a really good insight as to what is going on. So in this slide, these are all blue eyes. Do we agree that these are all blue eyes? If we do, give me blue in the chat box. And as you see this, I'm going to wait for you to put blue in the chat box here. You can see that we've got many different ways the fibers sit in an eye. And that's what we're focusing on today, is the way the fibers sit. We're looking at the structural subtype that we call polyglandular, because it is the type that is most predisposed to endocrine imbalances, right? So as we look at lots of clients, what you're going to see tonight is how one marking or one subtype does not necessarily mean the same thing to everybody, right? We need context here. And so let's take a look. This is a quintessential polyglandular subtype. And so with this one, again, there are several structural subtypes, and we're just going to touch on polyglandular tonight because we don't have time to do everything. That's what the dynamic iridology assessment system course is all about. These are the eyes of a young woman. She was in her early 20s when she came to me, and she has polyglandular eyes. And what that means is she's got several, like lots and lots in her case, lacunae attached to the collarette. This is the area of the eye just immediately outside the collarette that teaches us about nutrient transportation, about core blood and lymph, and it also is where many of the endocrine reaction fields are housed in the eye. So this young woman came to me with dysmenorrhea. So she had incredibly painful periods. Her menstrual cycle started at the age of 16. Her cycles are very irregular, ranging anywhere from 35 to 60 days from start to start, and debilitating cramps. She will typically have horrendous double me over, shoot me now kinds of pre-menses cramps for about 4 days. And then for the 4 days, the first 4 days of her menstrual flow, she will also have double me over, shoot me now kinds of cramps. And I personally do not think that women are supposed to suffer. I think that when women have menstrual cramps of any description, it means something's out of balance. Now, there's a lot going on here. The fact that her cycles can range up to 60 days suggests that there might be PCOS as well. She might be in the early stages of that. She has found that she needs to eat frequently. She's used things like medications like naproxen, Tylenol, and Advil to deal with the pain, but nothing works anymore. She's got a lot of different food sensitivities, including dairy, gluten, fatty foods give her instant diarrhea. So when we look at this, I'm not looking at any single one of these for her. We don't need to slice and dice here. The fact that she has all of these lacunae attached to the collarette tells us she is very prone to the endocrine imbalances, which makes it very clear that one of those could be to do with estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, right? And so with this, then we needed to talk about her diet. Now, because she has so many sensitivities with dairy and gluten and fatty foods, we've had to pick and choose what we are going to do. She does really well on proteins. So we got her to start increasing the number and size of protein servings every day. And we recommended a mineral supplement and in the form of a herbal formula to help her with the menstrual issues, along with omega-3 and vitamin D3. So those are the things we did. When we're working with the endocrine system, we need to make sure we've got essential fatty acids. We need to make sure we've got minerals. The endocrine system is a mineral vacuum. It just will suck up every mineral you'll give it, given the chance. And so when someone is deficient in minerals for whatever reason, they're going to have problems. And I've seen that time and time again, especially when it comes to menstrual cramps. So we gave her these recommendations and she was really motivated. She did not want to suffer anymore. So it took her a few cycles. And what we began to see with her is that her cycles settled down to 5 weeks. 35 days is decent. That's the longer end of normal, but it is a good fertile cycle. It says that PCOS is being held at bay. And we got her menstrual cramps reduced to 1 to 2 days moderate. Now, she was so happy with that she's just stayed with that for a few years. I personally would have liked to have pushed a little harder because I truly believe we could have helped to nourish her out of having any menstrual cramps whatsoever. But again, the client rules, right? And so she felt that 1 to 2 days of moderate cramps was a far cry from 8 days of horrible stuff. German is saying this case might have MTHFR, thyroid alteration. Yeah, she could. Her eyes do not suggest MTHFR, but the fact that she has such a strong endocrine undercurrent suggests that she likely would have a predisposition to thyroid, which again, the omegas and the essential fatty acids, the omegas and the minerals and building her protein can all help with that, correct? And so we've dealt with it as far as she wanted to deal with it. And that is a good thing. I like it when my clients are happy, right? Now I wanted to put this up here. This is a little controversial point. This is that same young woman. I've got eye photos of hers from a few years prior to when we did the photos we just looked at. And I wanted to stress here the importance of understanding the technology that you're using to take your photographs. This is really important because you will see a lot of people that would post a photo like this and a photo like this, And they would say, oh, look at the healing. Her pupil is smaller. Look at the lacuna. They've even changed shape. Look at the color. The color is so much brighter and clearer. She's done some cleansing and building. Oh, that is so good. Oh, buy the program. Here's the program I'm selling that got her these results. I'm going to tell you, it's garbage. Garbage. Notice we've got different cameras, different light sources. This light source was not as strong as this one. This one is an LED flash, which means it's quite a bit brighter. This one was a buffered light, which means not as much light was getting in, which means the pupil stays large. Her pupils were very large in normal room lighting, right? Remember that the iris tissue, when the pupil is large, the iris tissue compresses to take up a smaller space. It doesn't telescope, but fibers will look like they're moving, that like they've moved somewhere new, right? When we use a brighter light, the pupil will be smaller. The body goes, I don't like that light coming in my eye. I'm going to get smaller and keep that light out. That is going to stretch the iris tissue, which will make it look like the lacunae have changed shape, but they have not. It is simply a function of tissue compression and tissue stretching. Does that make sense? That is something that we were not taught 40 odd years ago when I started this. 40 odd years ago, I would have said that this to here meant cleansing and healing and happening. But we now know, as I've said, that is not true. All right, so just had to get that little soapbox in there. Let's look at another set of eyes that are in the same category. These are polyglandular. So polyglandular, again, we've got lots of closed lacuna attached to the collarette. And these people are predisposed inherently to hormonal imbalances, including insulin and cortisol. Now, it doesn't mean they have to have those problems. If they are going to do a junk food and soda pop diet, yes, they can have those problems if they would like. That is the perfect way to get there. If, on the other hand, they are moderating their foods properly, eating nourishing foods that will help them balance their blood sugars, then they do not have to go towards hormone imbalances, insulin resistance, and cortisol issues. Another thing to remember is that polyglandular people also tend to be very creative. All right, so this is a female. She is 65 years of age. She's got a strong history of depression. She's very health conscious, but her weight has been creeping up and she's feeling really lethargic. Her energy is not great. She's a vegan. Now, I have seen some vegans that are very conscientious do a really great job that are very healthy. The vast majority of the vegans that I see are unhealthy because they are not being conscientious. They have simply taken animal products out of their diet and they are simply living on carbs. That's kind of where she was at, just living on carbs. That's not going to help anything. She also had a very sedentary lifestyle. She's had a lot of stress in her life over her lifetime, including just prior to coming in to see me. So we had to have a very serious conversation about her diet. And I will never strong arm anybody into anything, but we had to talk about her being a whole lot more conscientious about getting protein. Where was she getting her protein from? How was she going to get an inflated amount of protein to help us bring her into balance? That was a hard discussion. She was not willing to add eggs or cheese or dairy or even things like spirulina, chlorella, or fish, nothing like that. She was only wanting to do this completely on plant, which is really, really hard, particularly in the climate in which we live. And so as I was encouraging her to at least build her plant proteins and gave her ideas of how large the servings would need to be if she was doing black beans, if she was doing kidney beans, if she was doing garbanzo beans, if she was including nuts and seeds and sprouts, it was going to be a lot. There's going to be a lot of really difficult to digest fiber in that. So we were going to need to use a lot of digestive supports to help her break things down well. So we added protein digestive aid to her. In the United States, that would be called PDA. It's from Nature's Sunshine Products. And we have added to her a broad general enzyme. The one that we've used with her is here in Canada is called digestive enzymes. In the States, it's called food enzymes. And I encouraged her to go for a walk every day. I also needed to ask her, because of her eyes, what did she do that's creative? And she said nothing. She's been too stressed and too busy. No way was there time for any creative expression. So I asked her, what would you like to do? And her answer was that she likes to draw things in nature. I asked her if she has access to nature close to home. And she said, yeah, I just moved into this really nice apartment. And right behind my apartment, there's a path that is a pathway that goes along the river. Very natural, very overgrown with brush, just a lovely, very natural kind of environment. And so I said, can you go for a walk every day? Yeah, I could go for a walk. I said, so if you're going for a walk, what kinds of things are you going to notice? And she said, oh, I'm going to find that I will see the tiniest flowers. I'll find the tiniest bugs. Fantastic. So how would you feel about getting a small sketchbook and whatever your favorite choice of drawing devices are, charcoals, pencil, crayons, pencils, pens, whatever. And when you go for a walk, you find something that intrigues you. You stop for 5 minutes, you draw it. She said, oh, it would never be good enough. And I said, I didn't say you're going to show it to anybody. This isn't for anybody. It's just for you. It's for the most important person who clearly is in need of some self-love and some fulfilling of creative energies. So what do you think? Could you do that? And she said, well, yeah, I guess I could. So when she came back 2 months later, her energy was improving. She had a bit of a sparkle to her that she didn't have in that first appointment. And I asked her, how are things going? And she said, oh, really good. And I said, tell me what that means. What have you changed and how is it impacting you? She said, well, I am being more conscientious with getting protein and I'm taking the digestive supports that you've recommended. And I love going for my walks. I love finding something little to draw. She said, my sketches aren't anything. They'll never end up in a gallery. But I love the feeling of drawing and creating again. Now, that's really important for someone who is polyglandular, because a part of what they need to balance their hormones is a creative outlet or a nurturing outlet, right? And for her, the drawing was the thing she needed to do. Now, as we're looking at eyes like this, do you think you know anybody who's got eyes like this? If you do, I want to see in the chat box, just, and I know if you know someone who you think has eyes like this. Maybe they're your eyes. Do you know somebody? I don't need their name. I just need to know if you know. Joe says she knows someone. So Joe, I'm going to ask you, is that person someone who has a creative streak? And this goes for everybody else who thinks they know someone who's got this type of eye. Yes, excellent. So a really important part of whatever healing processes they need to go through, yes, nutrition's important and supplements are important, and whatever spiritual work they need to do, that's important too. Equally important for these people to have that creative outlet, whatever that creative outlet is going to be. I have sent many people to the art supply store for a drawing pad and pencil crayons. Yeah, and they always say, oh, but I'm no good at it. And it's like, I didn't ask if you were good. I asked you if this is something you want to do. Right? Many times people who have that creative outlet were discouraged from fulfilling that creativity when they were young. And their parents said, oh, don't waste your time with that artist, don't make any money. Or do something useful with your time, like go and, study this or do that or, whatever. But oftentimes they were discouraged. This is another one of my clients. Is a male, 51 years of age, 5'8", weighs about 170 pounds. Now, he is an aircraft mechanic. So he is exposed to a lot of solvents. Now, you'll notice by comparing his eyes, let's come back here. These eyes have many lacunae attached to that collarette, many. These eyes have a few, but they've got enough. They've got just enough. So it's not quite the intensity, but that's okay. This just gives us another type of specific information. He started developing eczema about 10 years ago. And he thought it was from a fungus in his hockey equipment. I don't know what it's like where you live, but here we have a lot of evening hockey leagues. They're often called old timers leagues. So it's for guys who are not good enough to play, you know, on a professional team or a farm team. And they just love playing hockey. So they form their own leagues, and their equipment does not get cleaned very often. Right. So he was pretty sure that he developed this fungus from not having his equipment cleaned, and that led to eczema. And that had spread to his hands and his legs, his thighs, his torso, his arms, his ears. I mean, it was literally just about everywhere. He has a very active lifestyle, but he had to give up the hockey because his hockey pads and equipment were just irritating things too badly. So he's polyglandular. That is one layer of information for him. The lacunae placement that he's got suggests an increased risk of pancreatic imbalance. Remember, pancreas is endocrine and it's about blood sugars, right? He's also, again, an airline mechanic, which means that he is exposed to solvents and cleaning agents, hydraulic fluids, coolants, and fuels on a daily basis. And even though he wears protective gear, some of it still ends up on his skin, or he might not be working on with that right now. So he's taken off his respirator equipment, but it's still lingering in the air and he's breathing it in. So it can be inhaled. It can be on his skin from a splash. He might swallow it in the air he breathes. He has a history of very intense chronic heartburn, and he can have really horrible flatulence. So if there is a blood sugar imbalance, that is going to increase his risk of harboring fungi. And his skin has that symptom. His skin is the messenger here, right? So when we look, we see we've got a little bit of a scurf rim. So his skin is saying, yeah, genetically, I don't like my job description, right? It's not that he's built the scurf rim because of exposure to chemicals. It's that he's always had this bit of a genetic risk that his skin doesn't want to do its job properly, right? His stomach is not robust. We see indicators in there that suggest he may not digest protein well. And that, of course, if you don't digest your protein well, we end up with elevated acids in the blood, which stresses the kidneys and puts added pressure on the liver as well. That will all increase inflammation, which can come out through the skin. So what did we do with this fellow? Well, we started with adding protein digestivate or hydrochloric acid to his program to make sure he was digesting his proteins really well. And what we began to see was that by digesting his protein better, the eczema was starting to calm down a little bit. We also suggested cutting out the coffee that he was drinking. Coffee toughens the stomach lining and makes it harder for the stomach to secrete digestive juices. But it also is very hard on different elements of the liver's functions. Remember, the liver does over 500 different jobs. And if we continue to beat it up with things like coffee or other things that are not good for it, it's not going to function well. So we added to him some parsley as a really gentle but very broad blood purifier, also really good for the liver and the kidneys. We added omega-3. We added dandelion tea, 1 cup a day, some zinc, and some N-acetylcysteine. Over the next 4 weeks, his heartburn significantly decreased. and his skin was much less angry. He was noticing his skin was feeling more comfortable, which was so good to see. And again, we arrived at that in part because we see he's lymphatic. We see that he has that tendency towards being a little bit too uric acidy, and he's got the polyglandular, which is going to mitigate, is going to rule all of the endocrine organs. You know, your adrenal glands on top of each kidney affect how the kidneys work, right? We know liver has endocrine and exocrine functions. We've got so many organs that we're now discovering have got endocrine functions that we never knew about before. So being polyglandular is just one layer of information. We still need to consider the base constitution. We still need to consider their constitutional subtypes. And then when we look at that structural subtype and their polyglandular, we get a rounded out story. And from there, we can start dissecting a little bit further to find out, to get deeper and understand the whole pathway of how this problem has evolved for them. All right, we're going to take a little break here. And just before we look at some more eyes, just wanted to introduce myself to you in case we are new to each other. And I think I am new to a few of you. So good to have you with me. I'm just looking at our participant list. So good to have you here. My name is Judith Cobb, and I am one of only 10 level 3 IPA certified iridology instructors in the world. I was one of the first 3 when they introduced this a few years ago. IPA has us update our credentials every 2 years, and they've just started issuing badges to show that we are up to date and current. I got into holistic healing starting in 1979 and started playing with herbs and learning iridology and all kinds of stuff like that. I've studied iridology under 8 different instructors, 3 different styles. And over all of these years with the herbology training and the nutrition training that I've got and the iridology, I've written several books. They're all out of print right now. They're waiting to be rewritten. I'm not sure if that's going to happen, except for the dynamic iridology textbook, which is available to students in my course. I've also created and taught a lot of different courses on herbology and biokinesiology and color therapy. For a while, I was a certified prenatal educator. Loved teaching antenatal classes. That was so much fun. And of course, I love teaching iridology and herbology, and I love teaching health professionals and people who want to work with this professionally. So stay with me to the end of the course today, and I'll give you some information on the upcoming, or stay with me to the end of our class tonight, and I'll share with you information about the upcoming course. I am also a professional member of 2 nutrition organizations here in Canada and 1 herbal organization here in Alberta. Again, what I love about all of these organizations is that to be a professional member, you have to provide proof of training, right? And you have to do your CEU updates every year and stay current. And that is so important, as in my opinion. So much information. The next dynamic iridology course is starting on November 28th. That is just a few days away. If you're a health professional, and that means you've got an anatomy, college level anatomy and physiology course under your belt already with a grade of over 80% or a B. Maybe it's because you're a massage therapist or an RN or an MD. Maybe you did it as a part of your general studies in university and you didn't do anything with it beyond then, but you can get a transcript of that. Then you are qualified to speak with me about coming into the course. And I'm going to give you more information on how to do that in a few minutes. Elaine Hedden is a holistic physiotherapist in Alaska. And she says, I'm a holistic physical therapist and wanted to study iridology for years, but just couldn't find the right instructor or school. Judith Cobb's iridology course has been the perfect fit. The caliber and organization of the coursework is professional. Her depth and breadth of knowledge of iridology, herbals, nutrition, and pathology is beyond most instructors and even some university professors. If you are a health professional wanting to expand your scope of practice by learning about the most up-to-date information on iridology, take the 20-week level 1 and 2 class. I call it dynamic iridology from Judith Cobb, worth every penny and every minute. So from there, let's look at some more eyes. All right. This again was another client of mine. She's been with me for about 25 years. The beauty of doing iridology the way I am doing it And the way I teach it is that clients come in for 4 or 5 appointments at 1 month intervals. We get them on a really good pathway, and then they disappear for a few years because they're feeling good. They're doing their homework, they're getting results, they're feeling good. But life happens. They forget to do their homework. They have a major stressor. They got older. Golly, go figure, right? Things are slipping. And as things slip, they want to come back. So they call in, they book an appointment, they come back, we do a few more appointments, remind them of the things they know, teach them some new things, give them some new tools, 3 or 4 or 5 appointments, send them off again, and it's an ebb and a flow. So this is Michelle. On her most recent comeback, which started about 2 years ago, she was concerned. She was now menopausal and was gaining weight. All right, so let's think about this in terms of hormones. We've got a lot of hormone shifting happening when a woman goes through menopause, right? A lot. We look at her eyes. She is biliary, which means we know we've got a strong liver undercurrent here. And we know that she is connective tissue / polyglandular. So that's huge. We've got some of the constitutional subtypes happening in here, but we're not going to spend too much time on those. So knowing that she has connective tissue and polyglandular, she's got all of these lacunae, again, attached to the collarette. It had been a few years since Michelle had been in. And so as I'm looking at her eyes, I'm asking her, so Michelle, what's your diet like? What are you eating nowadays? Well, coffee for breakfast, coffee for mid-morning, coffee for lunch, coffee for afternoon, and maybe something thrown together for supper time. She lives with her 2 young adult sons, and if they're going to be home for dinner, she'll throw together pasta, something or other, just to, put some calories into them. If they're not home, she'll grab junk food for herself. This is not what I taught her when we got her ready to have those boys 20 odd years ago. Right? And so we had to have that conversation about what is going on. Like, why has your nutrition devolved to such a mess? And so then we started talking about how looks like her liver might not be wanting to manage her carbs very well. That could be pushing you towards insulin resistance, which could be a part of why you're gaining weight, as well as the estrogen testosterone imbalances that can happen at that stage of life. We know liver wants to be involved in this whole party, right? And that can mess up how the liver can then be messed up in how it manages the carbs. And in looking at her sclera, there were some indicators in the sclera as well, and I don't have those photos here for you, that suggested she was walking towards insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, candida yeast kinds of problems. So as I was chatting with her, because I know her well, I was pretty blunt and I said, what I'm seeing in your eyes says you're probably walking towards type 2 diabetes if you're not already there. I didn't say she had it. That would be diagnosing, and I don't get to do that. But I said, I think you're headed in that direction. And she started to cry. And I said, Michelle, tell me what's going on for you. Where are we at right now? And she said, my dad has type 2 diabetes and it's so messy. And I promised my boys I would never do that to them. I said, well, I'm not saying you've got it, but I think you're really flirting with it. And that means you've got some time. If you'll do the homework, we can reverse this process, right? And so that's what we've been working on with Michelle, is working on the emotional roadblocks that are messing with her diet, while we are working on correcting her diet and her supplements to balance her hormones and her endocrine system again. Does that make sense? How are we doing? Questions? Can you see with this why it's really important to have a strong anatomy and physiology foundation? If you don't have that strong foundation, iridology is so hard, and it turns into a 1 marking equals 1 problem rather than connecting all of the dots. So important. Here's another female client. And Marie's saying, yes, this is amazing. Yeah, fantastic, fantastic. Notice she is also polyglandular. We have some open lacunae as well as some closed lacunae in her eyes, but it's the closed that we're concerned about. 5'9", weighs 197 pounds. She was in her early 40s. Again, she's polyglandular, which means we're watching for the endocrine imbalances. That could be blood sugars. It could be menopausal issues. Endocrine is involved with blood pressure regulation, right? It's involved with depression and anxiety. Endocrine is involved with so many things. And so when we look at her, she's got these two large lacunae sitting in her kidney and adrenal reaction field. Past 5 years, she's been constantly bloated, had a lot of gut pain, and she's gaining weight really easily, finding it hard to keep the weight off, which all suggests, again, risk of insulin resistance and or candida, and they often mimic each other. She also has frequent migraines, vertigo, and dizziness. She has fibrocystic breasts. She has had a yeast or bladder infection after every menstrual cycle for the past few years. That's a problem. She's been diagnosed as hypothyroid and as having Raynaud's. Now, Raynaud's is an autoimmune, but it is strongly linked to the endocrine. When we balance the endocrine, we can usually have a really solid impact on Raynaud's. Her bowels are sluggish, one bowel movement every 3 days if she doesn't drink coffee. But if she does drink coffee, she can have a bowel movement every day, right? Caffeine stimulates the dumping of bile, which is a natural laxative, which will stimulate bowel movements, but coffee will toughen the stomach lining and make it harder to digest protein. Can we see we've got a problem here? So with this client, we put her on a pretty tough anti-candida program. It's low carbohydrate, high protein, lots of good fats. And the cool thing about this program is it does a really good job of helping to balance out insulin resistance. It gets the person back into balance with that. So she was on that program for about 4 weeks with intestinal and adrenal support. In that 4 weeks, that first 4 weeks of program, she's quite a new client to me, so we haven't gotten much further than that yet. She has only had one headache instead of having like 3 or 4 massive migraines a week. Her energy's improving. She's having 1 bowel movement a day without coffee. She's not bloated. She's not craving. She's got energy to start working out. Her husband has even commented that she's sleeping more soundly, and she hasn't had a bladder infection after her last menstrual cycle. So we addressed her endocrine issues by going after balancing her blood sugars and taming a yeast infection, right? Do you see from this how not all endocrine issues are created equally? That we need to consider each individual client and their particular needs to figure out which direction we need to approach things from? If you see that, give me an I see in the chat box. Maria is saying I see, and Charlene is saying absolutely I see. So good, so good. These are some comments that some of my students have said, and actually Peggy is with us on the call today. Hi, Peg. Different things that some of my students have said about the dynamic iridology course. So worth it. Judith's detailed teaching and the course, it's amazing. If you'd like a holistic education for a holistic assessment, this is the class for you. Judith stretches her students and grows us as students. Course is incredible. Money is well worth it to invest in yourself and to learn from the best. Course is amazing. Judith is an incredible teacher, highly recommend for everyone. So, you know, if you're interested in a course, then perhaps this is where you want to be. The course again is starting on the 28th, which is just a few days away. And the only way you register is by speaking with me personally. We have to have a private one-on-one Zoom meeting, not a high-pressured sales call. Some of you have had the calls with me and you know it's not a high-pressured sales call. Some of you have enrolled, some of you haven't because it wasn't the right time for you. The purpose of the call is to assess, is this the right course and the right time, right? So you can grab that course link, iridology.education/course-info. That's where you're going to find basic information about the course. And if you like what you see, there will be an invitation there for you to schedule a one-on-one with me, right? The Dynamic Iridology course is the only live online fully mentored course for nutritionists, herbalists, naturopaths, people who've got that college level A&P under their belt already, who are working with clients or want to work with clients, but don't want to spend hours writing reports. They want to be able to get their assessments done quickly and succinctly while they're with their clients, and they want to be able to have a deep rapport with their client. That's exactly what I teach you how to do here. I want you to have the kind of long-term retention. We've seen one of my clients that's been with me for 25 years. I've got many third generation and second generation clients, many that have been with me for 20 or more years. If you want to learn more than just iris markers, if you want to learn how they work together, how they play off each other, if you want to learn how to think through an iris assessment, and if you value long-term mentoring, not just while you're in the course, but you want to have access to a mentor after the course is finished, then we should have a conversation. We should have a conversation. Use that link that I posted and see what you think. The goal is to teach you constitutional iridology and how to use it confidently so that you can easily integrate it with what you already know about nutrition and herbology to confidently create doable client programs in your paid client sessions and to create repeat clients. We don't want to do this as a one-off thing. We're not going to give our clients a long list of markers, a long list of the problems it could be, and a long list of what they need to do with it. Too much information, your clients will get lost in that. I teach you how to laser focus based on what your clients' needs are so that you can create programs that will be easy for your clients to follow and will get them results, right? And then when they need you for more things, they will come back to you for more things. So important that we not overwhelm our clients. Again, the next live course starts on November 28th. There are a few call times left today and tomorrow. So if you are interested and want to have a one-on-one meeting with me, hop on that website, schedule a time to chat with me, and let's have a conversation. All righty, that's what I've got for you tonight. Any questions? I hope that I gave you that 30,000 foot overview of how a polyglandular eye can give us information about imbalances, but how it's not a standalone marker. We need to be correlating other markers and symptoms with it to understand where we need to go and what we need to do with this client. Are you good? Any questions, any concerns, anything I can help you with? Joe says, thank you. You're welcome, Joe. Fabulous as always, says Marie. Charlene says, always great info. You're most welcome, Charlene. All right, well, with that then, I guess we're done for tonight. I hope to speak with some of you in the next few days, and we'll talk to you soon. Have a good one and take good care. Bye for now.